This program is made possible by the support of Delta Dental, Quick Trip, Marshfield Clinic Health System, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Hospital Association. Watch WisconsinEye on Spectrum Channels 995 and 363 and at wiseye.org.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wisconsin Supreme Court hearing room for Justice Daniel Kelly's important announcement today. And what a perfect backdrop for his announcement, the signing of the United States Constitution. This beautiful painting hangs purposefully above the state's highest court bench to remind the justices who have served here of our obligation and our duty to always follow the Constitution of the United States. It is a reminder of the oath that every justice and judge in the state of Wisconsin swears to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin. I have had the distinct privilege of serving the people of Wisconsin on our state's highest court with Justice Daniel Kelly for the last 3 years. And it is because he is a staunch defender of our constitutions and the rights of the people that those documents protect that I stand here today in full and enthusiastic support of his candidacy for a 10-year term on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I have firsthand knowledge, and I have seen Justice Kelly in every case that comes before us, in every case that we decide, faithfully follow the rule of law and faithfully defend our constitutions. I have seen the amicability with which he interacts with each of our colleagues on this court, and I have seen his outstanding work ethic and judicial temperament as he sits on this bench. And for all of those reasons, I am absolutely thrilled that today Justice Kelly will commit to continuing his service to the people of Wisconsin for a full 10-year term. I am also delighted that retired Supreme Court Justice David Prosser joins us here today, representing the past of the court. And I am also delighted to introduce now Justice-elect Brian Hagedorn, who will join us in August to begin his first full-year term on our state's highest court. Justice-elect Hagedorn.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's wonderful to be with you all today, as well as to be here today to support Justice Kelly. He is someone who I have known for many years. Before the time we were judicial colleagues together, Justice Kelly and I have been friends who have, for many years, talked about the rule of law, have talked about what it looks like to have a court that truly is faithful to the Constitution, that truly puts politics aside, and have judges who understand their job is to say what the law is, not what they think the law should be, to follow the Constitution as it's actually written, which is what the people have adopted, and to follow it to its very end. And so it's really my honor to, number one, be here today to support Justice Kelly, and he has my enthusiastic and full support. And I look forward throughout the coming year to doing whatever I can to help him campaign and retain his seat, because he has done an excellent job on the court already. And he's not a blank slate. He's not someone who's just coming with words. He's someone who has a record. He's someone who has put those principles into practice. He is someone who knows how to write, knows how to research, and knows how to apply the law. And he's done so fairly. He's done so with due respect to the people of Wisconsin and their authority over the laws that they write and over the Constitution that they have adopted. And so really, I am just honored to be here to support my friend and, more importantly, someone who I think is a wonderful justice for the state of Wisconsin, and I'd love to see him serve for another 10 years. And with that, I'd like to introduce a justice who has done an excellent job and who I hope to see serve for another 10 years, Justice Dan Kelly.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Justice Bradley, Justice-elect Hagedorn, and my predecessor, Justice Prosser. Thank you for the kind words and the introduction. 3 years ago, when I was appointed as a justice of the Wisconsin Supreme Court, I started a conversation with the people of Wisconsin about the kind of people they want serving them on their court. And wherever I went, with whomever I spoke, I heard the same two consistent themes everywhere I was. And the first was this: they want their justices to be faithful to the Constitution. The Constitution as it is, not as they might wish it to be, but as they adopted it. And that has significant impact on what we do here in this courtroom. It means that we simply apply the law as we have received it from their legislators. We don't second guess whether it's prudent or effective. We simply apply it. The second theme that I heard was they want us to remember that we are their servants and they are our bosses. Now, that tells me the entirety of what my job is. We do as we are told, and we've been told by the people of Wisconsin they don't want us to make the law, they just want us to apply it. And that's what we do. Now, a couple of years ago, these conversations that I've been having were neatly summed up in a 4-word question that I received from a young student. See, we have this program here in the Supreme Court. We call it Court with Class. And it gives an opportunity for students anywhere from middle school all the way up to law school to come out and listen to an argument before the court. And then over the lunch hour, one of the members of the court will come out and talk with the students about the nature and history of the court. Well, I've done that program many, many times, but there is one that sticks out in my mind for the wonderful question that it produced. It was a couple of years ago, and as I was finishing my presentation, it was apparent that one of the students had something on his mind. And so as soon as I finished, his hand shot up in the air, and well, I was curious. I wanted to know what was on his mind. And so I called on him, and this is what he wanted to know. He says, "Who's your boss?" Well, I thought, after a moment, that's about the greatest question I've ever gotten. And I think it's a great question because it sets up the perfect framework to understand the proper relationship between the people of Wisconsin and the governments that they create. So I asked him, "What are your parents' names?" And he told me. I said, "Well, they're my boss." And I turned to the rest of the students, and I said, "And your parents are my bosses too." And I went back to the student that asked me the question, and I asked him, "Well, how old are you?" And he says, "I'm 13. I said, "Well, in 5 years, you'll be my boss too." And that's true, and this is why. All of the authority to create and maintain governments belongs to the people of Wisconsin. All of it. When I come to chambers in the morning, I don't bring the authority with me because it does not belong to me. And when I reach chambers in the morning, I don't find it there either because the authority does not belong to the office. It belongs one place and one place only, and that's with the people of Wisconsin. You see, everything that we do here is done with borrowed authority, all of it, every stitch of it. And that alone is exceedingly important. You see, the people of Wisconsin, they don't give away their authority, they don't sell their authority, they loan it. And that loan is so important that we write down the terms of the loan. And we call that document that contains the terms, we call that document a constitution. And that constitution is important because it tells us the nature of our authority, and even more importantly, from whom we have received it. We received it from the people of Wisconsin. And that means that they are our bosses. And what bosses they are. They are truly wonderful. And I'd like to tell you a little bit story about how I came to know them and what the nature of these bosses are. You see, 40 years ago, I came to Wisconsin as a young lad to study at Carroll College. I came out a few days early because I'd heard there was some good fishing in Wisconsin, and I do love fishing. And so I found myself at Nagawaki Park on Lake Nagawicca, beautiful place to spend a few days. Apparently the rest of Wisconsin thought so too, because they were all there. And that meant the campgrounds were full. Well, through one thing and another, I ended up spending the weekend sharing the campsite with a young family from Sheboygan Falls. And they were terrific. I think they took pity on me. There I was, newly arrived in Wisconsin. I'd never been here before, and I didn't know a soul here. And had all my earthly possessions packed neatly in the trunk of my beat-up old Chevy Chevelle. And they were neatly packed because there just wasn't much there. Well, they invited me to their campsite that evening. They shared the campfire with me, and they shared their dinner with me. Before I knew it, they put their two young children to bed, and we were up into the wee hours of the morning, just talking about a million different things. Well, the next day, they invited me sailing, and then to lunch, and then we pretty much spent the whole weekend together. And I thought, how remarkable. The very first people that I meet in the state of Wisconsin just happen to be the nicest and most generous people in the entire state, because clearly they had to be what they were. And what odds? There were 5 million people in the state of Wisconsin back then. And I just ran into the best of them. Well, a funny thing happened along the way as I spent more time here. I found people like that everywhere I went. I found them at school, I found them at work, I found them at church, I found them at parks and 100 other places all over the state of Wisconsin. I learned who Wisconsinites are. I learned their name. They are the people of the open hand and generous heart. And that's who my bosses are. The people of the open hand and generous heart. It has been the honor of a lifetime to serve the people of Wisconsin on their Supreme Court. And because Wisconsinites are the best bosses a guy could possibly ask for, I'm announcing today that I'm seeking their permission to serve them for 10 more years on their Supreme Court. Now, my campaign is going to largely be a continuation of the conversation that I started 3 years ago, but with one addition. I'm going to ask them to compare the work that I've done over the last 3 years to what they've told me that they want to see in their justices. And if they find me to be a satisfactory servant, I will ask them to join me in spreading this conversation all over the state of Wisconsin. And then, come April 7th, 2020, I'll ask them to join me in the voting booth and support me there and grant me permission to serve them for 10 more years on their court. Thank you very much. I'll take a few questions if you have any.
Can you talk about how Justice-elect Hagedorn's candidacy affected your decision and your approach to this race, and especially given that Democrats expect turnout to be high in the 2020 election?
Sure. So Justice-elect Hagedorn ran a campaign in which he concentrated on talking with the people of Wisconsin about the nature and function of the court. And Justice Hagedorn and I share a judicial philosophy. And what that's done is it's excited the people of Wisconsin in a tremendous way. So I'd expected that after that election was over, that people would rest, take the summer off, and wait until perhaps the fall or even later to hear about my campaign. I was prepared to let them do that, but they called me. So I've been so grateful for their outpouring of support already. They've sought me out. They've told me that they wanted me to run. They said they would do whatever they can to help me in the campaign, and they'd be with me every step of the way. And I've been energized by their excitement, and I'm grateful for their support. And they've told me that they want to keep this momentum going. They were excited about what they were able to do for Brian Hagedorn, and they want to do the same thing for me. And so I'm looking forward to this next year of talking to people all across the state of Wisconsin and sharing this message about what the role of the court is supposed to be and how we are supposed to be faithful to the Constitution, and in being faithful to the Constitution, being faithful to the people for whom we borrow our authority.
Speaking of Justice Hagedorn's campaign, we saw higher ratings with a big role throughout the debates and the campaign itself. Now, in 2014, your book wrote that morally the matter of law, affirmative action, and slavery are of the same application. Could you follow up with that a little bit in terms of what you guys said?
Yeah, just real briefly, because as a Supreme Court Justice, both sitting and in campaigning, it is beyond my authority and beyond propriety to comment on topics of public policy. But I will say this. So Justice Thomas of the United States Supreme Court, one of the finest jurists this country has ever had the pleasure of seeing on that court, he once wrote that there is a moral and constitutional equivalence between laws that subjugate races to slavery and those that distribute benefits based on a current notion of fairness. And Justice Thomas ought to know something about that. Not incidentally, he's a black man and the grandson of sharecroppers. I figure I can't disagree with Justice Thomas.
Conservatives secured the majority in election in April. What are the stakes next year?
Well, I think this is about the direction of the court. So there are two basic philosophies that we bring to the bench. One is the one that I described this morning, fidelity to the Constitution, paying attention to the rule of law, and not incorporating our personal preferences in the work that we do. The other major school of thought takes the opposite approach. It understands that part of the role of the court is to incorporate the personal preferences of its members, and that influences the way that they apply the law. And I think that over this next year, you'll see that there is a very stark contrast between the way that I approach the role of the court and the Constitution and those who will be running against me. And I think you'll see that the preference for their own policy preferences creeps into what they believe the court is supposed to function. One more question.
Can you talk to us more about your judicial philosophy?
Yep. So this is so my judicial philosophy grows directly out of my understanding of where we obtain our authority. Right. So if we obtain our authority on loan from the people of Wisconsin, and they tell us what the terms of those of that authority are in the Constitution, then our responsibility is to look to the Constitution and see what they've told us. And what they've told us is we've got, obviously, every school child knows, we've got three branches. The legislature deals with matters of the future. They decide what our policy will be that governs our actions tomorrow. The executive deals with the present. They have to take care to execute the laws in a way that will contribute to human flourishing. And so for the court, we have a very limited role because we deal entirely with the past. And in dealing with the past, our role is simply to apply the law as the legislature adopted it to the case in controversy and resolve that dispute. Now, the reason that's important is because this other school of thought, to the extent that they believe it's appropriate for a justice to bring in their own personal preferences, what they're doing is supplanting the role of the legislature. They are borrowing from the legislature some of the authority that the people of Wisconsin gave to the legislators. But the people of Wisconsin didn't give that to us. They have that entire branch to deal with what laws are good and effective, and they ask us only to apply those laws to resolve cases. And so my judicial philosophy is entirely bound up with my understanding of that limit that we have in the work that we do, simply to apply the law as it exists without respect to my personal preferences, and without respect to what I might think would be good policy. People of Wisconsin have chosen their legislators carefully and entrusted that responsibility to them, and I take them at their word, and as a servant, I do as I'm told. All right? Thank you all very much.